All right, Bob Kilpatrick. Besides being an accomplished singer-songwriter, musician, and worship leader, Bob also hosts a popular radio program heard 3 times daily by over 4 million listeners of the K-Love radio network. That's in the U.S. He's also an author, and one of Bob's newest books is titled The Secrets of the Silence, The Power of Praying Without Words. And I'm going to invite him over right now to help us figure out what he means by that. Welcome, Bob. Thank you for that music.
Well, you're very welcome. Thank you.
In a moment, I want to get into the book. But
okay.
Let's back up for a second. It's been a long time since you've been here on 100 Huntley Street. And I know you have a great story, and I hate to just ask for the Reader's Digest version, but some of where God has brought you from.
Well, I'll tell you, my testimony is kind of boring in some ways, and boring in this way. I didn't come out of a life of gross sin or anything like that. I was the son of a Baptist chaplain in the Air Force in the U.S. But my dad's life was radically changed by the Lord when I was 17, and I saw what had happened to him and said, whatever happened to you is what I want to happen to me. And because of my dad's influence, I radically committed myself to Jesus at that time. And so I became one of those Jesus people, you know, long hair. Some people would call us a hippie freak, but I never was a hippie or a freak.
Back in the early 70s?
Yeah, man, 1970 it was.
In California?
Yeah, and we were doing outreaches on the campus of UC Berkeley and down in San Francisco and Southern California, and cool things were happening. And we thought Jesus was coming back tonight, so we had to be busy today. And so we didn't do a lot of long-term strategic planning, you know, for our lives back then. But it still was a good groundwork for us and laid I think, some good radical commitments for me that have lasted until today. I'm still here.
You're still here.
Happy to be here.
Still a going concern. Now, lots happening in your life, including this new book, Secrets of the Silence.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, prayer is supposed to be a conversation. And in a conversation, if you're going to listen, you have to be quiet. And that's what it's about. It's really about the listening prayer. Because God, Psalm 81:13 says, "Oh, that my people would listen to me, that Israel would walk in my ways." God desires to communicate. In fact, John chapter 1, in the beginning was the Word. It doesn't say in the beginning was the ear, in the beginning was the Word. God desires to communicate to us. And we're kind of afraid of it because we think, number one, it's too mystical. Number two, it might lead us into deception and error. But God has very much called His people to be quiet and listen. And especially in these days, you know, people get up in the morning, they turn the television on, and then they get in the car to go to work and they turn the radio on. Then they go jogging and they put the earbuds in. And there's noise all the time.
Then they've got their little handhelds that have everything else on it that's
yeah, we're never sitting in silence. Yeah. And silence is I think it's a lost treasure. And something that we need more of, and so...
Well, you make a statement, Bob, in your introduction. It says, there is power in speaking aloud our concerns and delights to God. There is an equal and perhaps even greater power to silence in prayer.
Yeah, in Isaiah, he says, in quietness and confidence will be your strength. And I think that there is a strength that comes from not talking to God and presenting our requests, which we are called to do, so I'm not denigrating that. But there's a power in listening and knowing that you've heard from God. You know how it is when you are convinced God spoke to you and you know it. There is no doubt that God said, this is what, like for instance, when I was 17, I'm laying on my face for 5 hours in prayer in Berkeley, California, and I knew for a fact that I was set aside for ministry at that moment. And it was 5 hours of silence. I hardly spoke at all. And in that silence, I knew, well, that confidence comes from the silence and from hearing God.
So people are wondering, okay, you already talked about how difficult it is to get silent.
Yeah.
How can someone practically, take some steps to actually make it a part of their day, their life?
Well, you know what? The book is a 21-day, it's kind of a devotional. I call it a journey into prayer. And what it's meant to do is for 21 days, 3 weeks, you read one chapter, they're short. You read a chapter, and then you spend as much time as you care to in that silence. And I go through and I give scriptural background for everything that I'm suggesting that they should do. And then I also say, Look, God always speaks. If you're listening for the voice of God, He always speaks consistent with what He has spoken in the past. So, for instance, if God is telling you to do something that you cannot find in the Bible, you're probably hearing wrong. If God is telling you to do something that Christian leadership in your life are disagreeing with, you're probably hearing wrong. So God will speak consistently with what He said in the past in the Scripture, with what He's saying through godly leadership in your life. So it's a guide to how to hear and how to practice this silence. So